everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Adoptions from the Heart TV. I'm your host, Amanda Aliberti. Today we are very excited because we are welcoming in Christine Norris from the Delaware Interstate Compact office. Welcome, Christine.
Thank you, Amanda. It's nice to be here.
Can you share with us a little bit about your role in Interstate and what you do?
Sure. So I am one of two Deputy Compact Administrators for the Interstate Compact unit. I handle daily operations for the unit. A big part of what I do is process referrals. That would be for the send situation and the receive situation. So what I mean by a send situation would be when we have children that are here in Delaware and they're sought to be placed in another state. I receive those referrals from a person or an agency. I review them, I sign off on them, and then I in turn send to the receiving state's compact office asking for services or an approval. On the flip side of that, I handle referrals coming inside or into Delaware. I will then review that packet, make sure it's complete, and then I will do the assigning of an agency. I'm either asking for services such as a foster home study, an adoption home study, stuff like that, or a simple approval of an adoption if the home study is already there. At the end of that, I'm the one who will make the approval or the denial for children to be placed here in Delaware. So I'm basically a liaison between the state of Delaware, between other states' compact offices, public agencies, private agencies, courthouses. Sometimes families call me personally as well. I'm like the person behind the screen that nobody ever sees. And so I liaise between everybody. And I conduct trainings on what ICPC is and why it's important.
Great. So a lot of our waiting families, when they're coming into the process, they learn about ICPC and they understand that when they are eventually placed with a child, they have to wait for that approval before they can cross back home to their home state if they're placed with a child from a state other than their own. Can you talk a little bit about the timeline of how long families potentially have to wait and what happens exactly once a family gets a baby, they're in that state waiting? What exactly is transpiring during that timeline?
Sure. So during that timeline, the ICPC, which is the Interstate Compact on the Placement of Children, that's the official title of it. We use the acronym ICPC, so we'll stick with that from here on out. So once it's determined that the criteria has been met for an ICPC, which the criteria would be the adoptive parents reside in a state that's different than the baby was born in, or if the child's a little bit older, where the child's a resident of. Once it is determined that that is a criteria, the baby's born, the baby's ready to go home with their parents, that point is when Adoptions from the Heart would prepare a packet to us, to the sending state's office. We then review it. The timeline, I would say, is pretty fast. We are very understanding that these families want to go home, and they probably have these babies that are healthy, and they just want a parent. Yeah. And so we do our best. I would say within about 24 business hours, we review packets. We would then send to the receiving state's compact office. Once they get it, they have 3 business days. That gives them some time to review it, make sure that all the paperwork is there, make sure that they believe that the child the placement in their state would be in the child's best interest, and then they will make the official approval or denial. We do all of this through email today. That's the beauty of it. It used to be hand-delivered packets, sometimes the mail, but now it's basically, I would say, 99% email, so it can happen pretty quick. I always tell people the 3 business days so that hopes don't, get, risen too high. But within 3 business days, there's usually an approval, a denial if that's the case, but more than likely an approval. And then at that point, we would then contact the agency, which would be you guys, and we would say, here's our Form 100A with approval. Send them home.
And I think it's important for our audience to remember that you are a separate entity from Adoptions from the Heart. So while we work with you, once we give you that packet, it's out of our hands. Correct. We have no control over when you guys and the receiving state approve the packet.
Correct. And our role is to, again, ensure that requirements in both states are going to be met. You know, sometimes paperwork looks different. Different states have different laws, different regulations, and part of the compact is ensuring that we're honoring both states. And you know, a main part of the ICPC is protection for the child too. It ensures that when we're placing a child in another state, they're going to get the same services, the same protections that they would get if they remained in their home state. It also ensures that if a placement is ever deemed contrary to their best interest, that they're returned home to their home state.
So a lot of families, when they're in that moment, waiting in that state to get the approval, get very frustrated. What's going on? Why is this not being approved? Doesn't Interstate understand? I'm here in a hotel with my newborn baby. What type of sensitivity do you guys give to what's happening in terms of your efficiency and speeding up the process?
So we're really sensitive to that. And like I said, you know, when we get a private adoption packet, we know more than likely it's pretty complete that these families are ready to go. Occasionally we get a packet where a baby might still be in a NICU or something, and that buys some time, but more than likely, like you said, they're in a hotel, they have a newborn, they want to go home. So we try to prioritize those. I always say to remind people that you don't want to be placed out in violation of the compact because there's ramifications to that. So without that ICPC approval, without that signed Form 100A, it would be considered an illegal placement. And a ramification would be the receiving state making the child return back to the sending state. And then that would just be traumatic for the baby, for the child, for the families. So again, we are very sensitive to that. We work as fast as we can. If there's any snafus, maybe a piece of paper is not in the packet, or maybe we're waiting on a certain medical documentation from the hospital that won't give official approval. If we think it's in the child's best interest, sometimes we'll offer an approval to travel. So we'll say, go home. It's not the official approval, but we're almost there. That happens from time to time. So, you know, it's not all black and white. We try to see the gray. And again, we try to work as quickly as possible.
And I will say, Adoptions from the Heart has a great relationship with our Delaware Interstate office, and you guys are very efficient. I think we know what you require, you know how we work, and we try to get this done as fast as possible.
Well, thank you. We have the same feelings towards you guys here too.
Good. And again, Interstate is just a part of the process. You know, it's something that just has to be done. We want to make sure everything is being done legally, efficiently, so that we can get everything moving appropriately. Hopefully you've learned a little bit more about Interstate. We are very thankful for Christine to kind of share with us about the specifics of the Interstate office. Thanks so much, and tune in next week.